Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be looking at making a custom cape for a vintage 3 3/4 inch Kenner Boba Fett figure. Now this figure I've always thought really could do with a cape. A lot of figures from the Empire Strikes Back line did come with capes, but Boba Fett was one that they just didn't bother doing it for. I'm guessing they thought the figure was cool enough as it is, but I've been doing some work recently sort of adding capes to figures or improving capes on figures. You can see here this is my Darth Vader that I took off the vinyl cape and I've made a set of fabric capes for him. So he's got a little fabric skirt and this much more sort of screen accurate cape to hang down. I thought we could do the same with Boba Fett. Now for Empire Strikes Back, Kenner used either fabric capes or vinyl capes. You can see here on the left we have the three figures that came with vinyl capes. So we've got the Bespin Leia, we've got Lando, and we've got the Hoth Snow Trooper. All of those had vinyl capes, and two of the figures came with fabric capes. So we have the Ugnaught and Yoda. Now I tend to think that Kenner probably would have gone down the line of putting a fabric cape on Boba Fett because I think it would look better. So that's what we're going to do today. We'll make a new fabric cape for him and get him looking as cool as Darth Vader does in the background there. So initially I thought I'd look at the 12-inch Boba Fett as sort of some inspiration to see what they've done there. I've previously made capes for this figure, so do check out those videos. And the cape on this one is a fairly simple affair. It's basically an oblong of fabric with a seam sewn around it, and then a couple of bits of elastic on the top here to hang it over the shoulder. And for the 12-inch figure, it doesn't look too bad. It gives a reasonable effect. You get a sort of a cape that hangs down. But if you were to scale this down onto the smaller 3 3/4 inch figures, I think it would look really quite rubbish. It would literally be a square of fabric hanging off the shoulder of Boba Fett. So this, although it looks quite good at this scale, for small ones I don't think it will look very good. So I'm not actually going to use this as a basis, but it was nice to have a look at it anyway, just to remind myself what I'd made. So the tough part of this project is actually working out what shape you need to cut a cape to get something that looks right and sort of hangs right on the figure. And this has taken me quite a while. I've actually done 5 or 6 different versions until I've worked out something that will give us the result that I'm sort of after. So this was my initial cape, and you can see here it's too bulky. It just sort of hangs and doesn't really hang very nicely and sort of all sticks out the back. So I'll take this off just so you can have a look and see what it looks like. My idea was basically to cut an oblong and then put a few sort of holes in the middle of it. And you can see, although the idea was sort of right, what actually happens when you put it on the figure is it doesn't look very good at all. So we'll class that one as no good at all. So I then thought, well, let's try making a square and see if that works better. And you can see this one, again, looks too bulky. So this is just a square with some holes cut in the middle. So again, not very good at all. We'll class that one as another duff one. I have to go through these prototype stages just to see what will work. And sometimes what I come up with doesn't work for quite a few goes. So I did another one, which is this one, and we'll take a look at that. It hangs a little bit better, but still not quite right. So again, this is actually another oblong one, but with the holes cut in a slightly different way. So you can see those ones that we've got horizontal, these ones are sort of vertical. Didn't make much difference. So again, that was another scrap figure. Then we go on to this one, which is another sort of version. It doesn't hang quite right at all. It just doesn't look right to me. I was sort of getting bored of cutting these by then, but I knew with enough cutting I would get something that would work. So this one is an oblong, but with the sort of the edges cut at an angle to try and make it drape a bit better. It did look better, but it still wasn't right. So we'll class that one again as a failure. So that's number 4 in my pile here. I do actually have a 5th one of those, which was with the things cut the other way. So that's number 6. Was that 5? 5, I think. Then we've got number 6, which is this one. And this is where I started to actually get something that I thought was going to work. You can see it does start to hang quite nicely. And this was my first one where I actually felt like I was getting somewhere. So on this one, let's take the cape off and you'll see it's not the shape that you would imagine. So this is the next one. So it's basically an oblong, but with the whole of a corner cut off. That started to look quite nice. So I knew I was onto something. Now, finally, I've come up with this. So this is my final sort of cape pattern. So it is an oblong with the corner cut off, but this edge is nice and curved. And then 2 little notches cut through there to put the arms. And if we fold this one in the right way, so we fold it like that, so you end up with a little bit of a sort of point coming down, and then we fold it like that, it starts to look like a nice cape to sort of drape on Boba Fett's shoulder. So now, if we put this on the figure, like so, tuck it under his arm, I'm actually getting the result that I wanted. There are plenty of photos of Boba Fett online just sort of standing around, especially on Bespin, and the cape just drapes quite nicely off his shoulder. And I think that gives the result that I'm most happy with. So it hangs down about the right sort of distance. It should go just below his knee. It's got a nice amount of layers to it, so it doesn't look like it's just one piece sort of folded over. I think that's what we're going to go with. So now I'm happy with this. All of the other ones you can see are sort of wasted to the side, but you've got to go through that process. Let's make a pattern for this, and then we can make the final version of the cape and put it on the figure, and we'll choose the right sort of fabric to go with as well. But after 6 goes, I have a prototype. So yeah, let's make a proper pattern and we'll get this cut out nicely. And here we go. After only a few minutes work, I've now got a nice pattern that I can use to make the proper capes. I've tidied everything up on this because basically my one that I sort of cut, the prototype, the edges were pretty rough and not very square, so this is now nice and square and straight, and you can see exactly what we need to do. Cut this shape out, that's where the fold line is on that dotted line, and then we have these 2 little marks here, which is where we cut for the armholes. But before we do that, we need to sort out some fabric. So the prototype was made out of this stuff, which is called toy knit or looped fleece. I actually picked this up in Japan quite a few years ago, and I've been using it ever since because it's really nice for making like Luke Jedi capes and things like that. It's a nice sort of fawny brown. I'm not sure if it's quite right for Boba Fett. Having a look at the photos that I showed you a minute ago, the cape actually looks very green, so I've sort of gone through my selection of toy knit and other versions of this looped fleece, and I found this one, which is possibly a bit too bright, but I actually think it will work because you know, a lot of the Star Wars figures were fairly garish in their colours, and in fact actually Boba Fett is a lot more garish than how you see him in the movies. The paint scheme on him is quite bright, so I think this will work. So I'm going to make one out of this, which is sort of nice and bright. Again, this is the looped fleece. I will put a link in the description as to where I get this. There's only one place I've actually found that you can get it online, and it comes from China, so if you do order it, it takes a little while to arrive, so you have to be patient on projects like this. I also have this grey, which I think will look quite nice as well, so I'm going to make sort of different versions of it. Again, this is the looped fleece, so you can see on one side you've got a nice sort of fluffy finish. This is almost exactly like the fabric used on the sort of Jedi era cape, so it's a very nice match and really does sort of suit the figures. So there you go, they're the 3 colours I've got: a grey, a bright green, and this fawny brown colour. Hopefully, you know, in the future I might find something that's a bit closer to the screen used stuff, but at the moment I think these will do. So let's get cutting. So here is the pattern cut out, and I've actually just pinned it to a piece of the green toy knit. When you cut out my patterns, cut away all of the outer grey line, and you should be left with just the white piece in the middle. All of the stuff around the edge is basically there to stop people stealing my designs and selling them online, which is happening quite a lot at the moment. So all of this is just sort of watermarks to try and avoid people doing that. With it pinned on the fabric, it is a very easy cape to make. There's no sewing involved. Basically, I've just got to cut this shape out, so we'll cut around that and then cut those 2 notches in, and we'll see what it looks like. To cut the armholes, I find it easiest to use a ruler and a knife because it just gives you a little bit more control. So I basically use the ruler to push everything flat on my cutting mat, and then the knife just to carefully cut through the fabric. You can do this with scissors. I've just found this to be an easier, more reliable method. So we'll do both of these like that. Just cut it a couple of times, and then you'll get nice even cut marks through the fabric. So I now need to just go and cut the rest of the colours out, and then we can test them on the figure. And there you go, I've now cut out all 3 capes, so we can now put these on the figure. The way this works, if you look at the pattern, you can see there's a line between those 2 cut marks that we've made, and that's where you have to fold it. So you've got to fold it like that. You'll end up with a little sort of pointy piece pointing down. We can then fold this back section over so that it sort of folds down like that, and you end up with another sort of set of flaps here. But you've basically got two holes there that line up, and that's where we can put Boba Fett's hand through. So it's his left arm. This is the figure I repainted a while back, so you'll see this in another video. So this is not quite the original colours of the figure. I've got slightly muted colours. Now this hole is going to be a little bit tight the first time you put the cape through, just because it needs a bit of stretching. So we can push this up the arm. Boba Fett's arm, it's also got a lot of detail on it, so it makes it quite awkward to push this over. That should go all the way up to the shoulder. And then we'll just refold that piece down, and that sort of hooks under his arm and gives you a cape that looks like that. I think that's not too bad. You've got a nice lot of ruffles in it, which is what I was aiming for. If you look at those photos again that I showed, there are quite a lot of sort of ruffles in it, and it makes it look like quite an interesting cape. It's not just a sort of flat piece of fabric, it's got lots of layers to it. I think that works really quite nicely. Might be a little bit long, but no, I think that works very well. Let's put the other capes on the other figures in the different colours, and we can see what those look like. But overall, I'm very happy with that. I'm sure there's other ways that you could do this, and I'm sure there are other customizers out there who've done this in a different way, but I think that gives a very satisfying look, so I'm happy with that. So I've had a slight change of how I fold it as I've been putting these on. I found that if I folded the first bit like that, that works really nicely. On the green one, you saw me fold this piece over the sort of side so that it was on the outside. I think it actually looks better if you fold it under like that. It just hangs a little bit neater. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. I'll redo the other figures and I'll put this one on like that. I just think the end result looks a bit nicer if it's folded that way. And there we go, 3 different Boba Fetts with 3 different colour capes. I actually like them all in their own way. I think for the sort of more screen accurate look, then this fawny one or the grey one probably look the best. They give a really nice sort of finish. But as a sort of toy colour goes, I like this bright green. I think that does work very nicely as well. It just finishes the figure off, gives a little bit more detail to him, and this is certainly something that Kenner could have done back in the day. As I say, this is possibly not the only way of doing it. I sort of like the way I've cut this just because it gives a very interesting shape. There are other ways that you could have cut this to, I'm sure, get something that looks very similar. The original cape that you see in the movies is square, but obviously because it's a bigger piece of fabric, it tends to hang much nicer. With these smaller capes, they don't have a lot of weight to them, so you actually have to be quite creative in how you cut them to make them hang the way you want to. But I think these all look very nice, and they certainly do add an extra level to this figure, so I'm very happy with how that has turned out. And if you've watched my other video, you'll have seen that the Darth Vader upgrade I did really does make quite a difference to how that figure looks. So this has now got a fully fabric cape, so you've got a fabric upper cape, and then he's got a fabric skirt on. So do go and check that video out, because that's another sort of easy modification to do to upgrade a figure. The pattern for this cape will be available from toy-polloi.com, so if you want to have a go yourself, go and check that out. And if you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.